Hey, how is everybody this evening?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining us for episode 13 of the Update Log. Joining me again, as always, are my two faithful co-hosts, Matt and Greg. And see, we've got a couple of regulars coming in: Harper Ring Young, Old Man Garris. Let's see who else we got in here. Got a couple of sleepers too. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us again every Wednesday. The Update Log, episode 13. You probably noticed the interesting title. No one cares about your game. And we're going to get into that in a moment. First, I would like to just see how you guys are doing. How's everybody doing today? And how's y'all Wednesday going? Moon Girl, hey, welcome.
I'm still trying to get over the faithful part.
Dreading going back to work, says Ring. Yeah. I mean,
Don't we all?
No, nobody wants to go back to work. Ain't nobody wants to go back to work.
Why can't I just get money for like sitting on the couch and doing nothing? This world is so unfair.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a topic for a different day.
Yeah. Joke.
Anyway, I'm good, man. I am good. It's a fantastically hot and miserable day up here, and it's the middle of summer. What can be expected?
Yeah, I know. I feel that.
Yeah,
I found in Georgia.
Yep, I found a mystery rake in my backyard today.
A mystery rake.
Yeah, and my backyard is fenced off, so that means someone came in and put the rake there and left. So it was like, where did this thing come from? Who put it here?
Either that, or since it's fenced in, they got pissed off and tossed the rake over the fence and then turned around and told everybody else, they're like, "Oh, I can't find the rake, man. Guess I can't do that."
It wasn't even like, it was like up against the side of the fence, like someone like actively placed it there instead of like tossing it over. That's the weird thing.
Oh.
So I don't know. Tomorrow I'll just go over to my neighbors and be like, "Hey, is this thing yours? Like, what's up?"
Moon Girl says she's eating Korean barbecue. I'm kind of jealous now.
Ooh.
Korean barbecue sounds real good.
That does sound good.
Yeah. There's not really very good Korean barbecue places. At least not where I live. Maybe in Atlanta, there probably is, but not
this place not too far from where I live. I think it was Korean barbecue. It was some type of Asian-ish barbecue.
I can get barbecue where I live. Korean barbecue? I gotta drive like 40 miles to get that. But. So I am really curious now to find out why nobody cares about my game.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, let's jump into that.
Give a little bit of context for that fairly harsh phrase.
Well, the thing about no one caring about your game is it's good and it's bad. It's mostly good. I will tell you that it's mostly kind of a good thing. It's bad in that, and the perspective is no one cares about your game because no one knows about it, and you can create the best damn game on the planet. You can create something revolutionary. No one hears about it. No one's there to care.
Yeah, like the main message overall is that there's a lot more to making a game than making it and just putting it on the storefront. There's a lot more that goes into that.
And we will get into storefront talk here in a little bit. But yeah, Matt's perfectly right. Like if you just put it out there and hope someone's going to see it and talk about it. That's like spitting in the wind. It ain't gonna happen, man. And the reason why that on the one hand, the reason why that's another bad thing is, and the reason why that saying holds true is because a lot of, and we're talking about double A, smaller triple A studios and indie studios primarily, because these are the ones that go overlooked. The reason why is because they get drowned out by things like The Last of Us, Elden Ring. Even though Elden Ring was a unique one, and I'll get to that in a moment. But and I know we've brought them up quite a number of times. Cyberpunk 2077.
Get some new games, man.
Essentially, big budget games that had huge marketing budgets.
Exactly.
So, like, everyone and their grandmother knows that this game exists. So, you're watching some TV, you get an ad, boom, there's the ad for the game. You're watching some videos online, boom, there's an ad in front of it. So obviously, getting noticed isn't a problem for those large companies who can afford to spend millions upon millions of dollars on ad campaigns. When you're a smaller studio, like indie or just small group of people, that's where it gets a little more difficult, because most of the time, a small group of people probably don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on advertising.
No, they don't have, most studios don't have an entire marketing department just to push the game. It's an important piece of the development pipeline for your game, but it costs a pretty penny. And those are the kind of the two parts of the kind of that coin, and that saying no one cares about your game. The good part is there are ways around that, especially nowadays. And we're going to talk about a couple of those. The first one I want to go into, and we're going to kind of look at it from a macro and a micro standpoint.
Rob, there is a really unique thing. I just want to bring this up really quickly before you roll in there. There is a really unique phenomena that happens, and in particular for the homebrew game studios. Okay, so groups of players that get together and decide that they want to create something special, or that they want to, take the content that they create and try to sell it or market it or share it with the world, type of thing. There's a falsehood that was created. I'm gonna pick on Hollywood for a second here and say, if you build it, they will come. That's false. That doesn't, Field of Dreams does not happen.
Yeah, I was going to say, Field of Dreams.
Yeah, the cases of success in that case are very rare. They do exist in some odd spaces, but again, it shouldn't be your expectation by any means.
Well, in a lot of the, the long time gaming community, people who have really been in the community for a long time, and invested a lot in it, divested a lot of their time in it. I mean, most of these people have at least some idea what I'm talking about here, because at one point in time or another, they've had that thought in their mind about, hey, how do I take this, what I'm creating, and share it with people, and then how do I make an income off of it? Because that would be great. I love gaming. I love the industry. If I could do this as a living, that'd be fantastic. And some of that stuff is what we're going to talk about today. Is really, what are the fallacies involved with it, and what are the things you have to do, and it's not just about creating a game. Of course, you have to create a game. I mean, that's the hard part. You have to create the content that you're going to use. And that's really complicated, and in some cases really hard. It has become easier, but not easy, over the years with the addition of things like the OGL pieces that different studios have offered, with their existing products, like the AAA games that have put out these open licensing agreements, allowing people to create content that is specifically created using their mechanics. But that still doesn't make it easy. And even though you are taking advantage of those things, those OGL pieces, there's still a ton of things that you have to do. And a lot of that stuff is really uncomfortable, especially for people who really don't have any idea. One last thing I do want to mention is nobody knows what they're doing. Okay, I'll just be clear about that. There's nobody who knows what they're doing. Even people who have been doing this for a long time and have a lot of experience or have introduced 3 or 4 different games already or more. Every time you come to that table, every time you come to that juncture where, okay, we're going to create and release this new game, you start over from the beginning and you have the same feelings of anxiety, anticipation, worry, stress. It's the automatic that's there. Garrus, I just wanted to recognize what you're saying, man. Absolutely. And you have a unique understanding of these things as well. And I really appreciate that. That was my soapbox, man. Back to you.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. If you watch, and again, we're going to get into meat and potatoes of this in a second, but if you watch, or if you listen to kind of the, this can sound bad, but the older generation of game makers and gamers and stuff like that, particularly game makers, a lot of them will tell you, I got into this by accident. I kind of just stumbled into it. One of the most notable persons that I've heard recently was Mike Pondsmith, the creator of Cyberpunk IP. He did a talk over at, I think it was UCLA. He was like, yeah, I kind of just kind of walked into this really, and I've been doing it ever since. It's not how like it is now where people want to make games. Like gaming and creating games, while it's such a big business, back in the day, I mean, even when I was growing up, and I'm, not super old or anything, it was looked at as a waste of time. So the resources that we have now weren't there, so you kind of had to fumble your way through it. But even with the resources, you still have to fumble your way through it. So creating the game is easy and hard at the same time. I know it's an oxymoron, but it is what it is.
You're just a little older than me, right, Rob?
I think that's the most you've ever made him laugh.
Damn, that's mean. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh that hard. Didn't mean to laugh that hard.
There was a joke there, but now, no, never mind.
I hurt his feelings. I'm sorry. But no. All right. So let's jump into this. One of the, and this is on the kind of micro level, or you can consider it a piece of advice, kind of on the micro level, meaning kind of in-house, something to do where it's something that you can apply to kind of each piece of marketing. Get to the point quick. I mean, we live in an age where you got at most, I'd say, 8 seconds, and I was being generous, to catch somebody's interest in something. And it doesn't even have to be game related; it could just be anything. I mean, every platform from YouTube to TikTok especially. I mean, you see it even in the dating world. Tinder, swipe right. Like most people, as soon as you see someone's pictures, you're pretty much already deciding whether you're going to swipe left or right. I don't know which says yes and which says no. I don't know. I've never actually been on Tinder. But
I think it was right for the yes. Don't quote me on that though.
Yeah, I've never even downloaded that thing. But yeah, it's your presentation of the product that you're trying to create, the game that you're trying to make. You have to grab them quick. The information has to be succinct. It has to be clear, and that's where the challenge comes in, is making that hook crystal clear in what you're trying to present. If it's an RTS, if it's a mobile game, if it's MMO, if it's a shooter, whatever genre, whatever platform it's going to be on, you have to have that information kind of front loaded into your presentation. And that in of itself takes a bit of artistry, because it also has to represent and put the best foot forward for your game. Because if it's quick, but it falls flat, it doesn't have the message that you're trying to send, then again, it's going to do the same thing as doing nothing. You're not going to get anywhere. And oftentimes you're going to make people way more confused than if you had done nothing.
Yeah, and honestly, I think one of the biggest hurdles for for this thing of you have to grab them quick, and is because when you're like a smaller developer and people don't know you, I feel like their patience is so much thinner
Hmm.
because they don't like, as opposed to like a huge AAA company, a very known entity by just about everyone puts out a trailer. You kind of know what they're about, and I feel like a lot of people are probably more willing to sit through however many seconds of nonsense in the trailer before they actually show anything.
Oh
But I
yeah,
feel like if you don't know who this person is at all, like you've never heard of them before, I feel like a lot
or
of
the
people just
game.
don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
or the game, they've never heard of anything. I feel like their patience is for the most part, and I'm
Mhm.
not gonna say this is everyone, but I think this is very common where they just won't wait as long and to kind of stick around to see what you've even got going on.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
like,
like if it's not a big name like From Software or Capcom or I think is Konami. If it's not something like God of War or Halo or something like, so like if it's not a game that has its roots, or a studio, even if it's a new game from a familiar studio, viewers and gamers, and most consumers will give that studio more of their time because they have an idea of how good the product is going to be. When you're a newer studio, you don't get that leeway. As Eminem said, you get one shot.
yeah, so like,
You get one shot.
yeah, so
Um,
you gotta like show the people as quickly as possible. This is what the game actually is. This is what you're gonna be doing. You have to show that them quickly before that like initial patience is like wears thin, so they can see what it is and then make the decision if they're going to stick around longer and watch through the whole thing, or if that's just not their cup of tea and leave anyway.
Yeah, there's
mm,
there's there's two immediate steps that you absolutely have to take, and number one has to deal with the art piece to it, because you have to grab people's attention, and that's especially if you do not have name recognition. You're not a AAA game. You don't have that piece to it. Then you have to grab people's attention. So cover art is extremely important, or whatever the advertising piece to it is. And then
mhm.
secondly is you've got to get to the point quickly, which is what you guys are talking about. You've
Yep.
got to relay, what is this game? What is this about? And you've got to do it fast, because if you don't, and people they're not going to be interested in your story. Yeah, that's not the piece that's going to pull them into it immediately. There are some people that are out there, early adopter types. But if you're aiming only at that market, and you're going to do content heavy advertising, and you're not going to do, more or less the shock and awe piece, which is get good cover art so that you can grab people's attention and drag them to what you want them to look at, and then get to the point quickly and tell them, this is what this game is. It's okay to put the extra stuff in there, but make sure that your initial advertising is burst advertising. Boom, here's a really fantastic graphic of what this is about, and secondly, here's a short to the point description of the game. Bam, this is what we do this. That's what you need to do, because you have seconds to qualify your customer. What more or less is what it is. You're qualifying your customer. You have seconds to do that, and if you don't get their attention within those first few seconds, they're moving on. They're moving on to the next thing, or they're going to go look at the new AAA game that's out there. You had your one shot and you blew it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like one thing I think is a fairly good example is a kind of an old series being revived. Any of you guys remember the Fable series?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
played the first one.
yeah. The first I've played 1, 2, and 3. 3. But it's
So
getting
stop talking about that.
three. What? No, that doesn't exist. Just like
Yeah.
how D&D 4th edition doesn't exist. We don't
No,
talk
we
about
don't
that.
talk about that. No, we don't talk about that.
Fable went 1, 2, and now apparently 4. It's actually being revived. But
Eh,
and there are a lot of people who are raising some eyebrows at its trailer because its trailer doesn't show a lick of gameplay. And like,
you know, yeah, we're
people-
gonna get into
people-
that one in a second.
yeah, and like people are going to still pay attention because it's a known
Hmm.
like series. People are still
Yeah,
going
it's
to
a
pay
known
attention
IP.
even if there's a lot of skepticism because of a trailer with no gameplay and the state of 3. Because I'm very much in that boat. I'm gonna pay attention when it comes out. I mean, I'm not gonna buy it right away. Of course, I gotta see something first. But imagine if you saw like an indie game coming, a series you've never seen before, coming from a developer or a publisher you've never seen before. You watch this
Mhm.
trailer and there's not a lick of gameplay.
It's all cinematics
you have-
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, all cinematics, all like some fluff or whatever. And so you know nothing about this. You didn't see any gameplay, you don't know who this is, you don't even know what the game is. What are the chances that you're gonna actually keep up with it?
None. I'm gonna forget it as soon as I leave that that page, the video, whatever it is. It's already gone for me. And yeah, and the thing with that is, and I remember Matt, you were saying this. I think it was yesterday. We were talking kind of about this particular topic amongst ourselves, and apparently the whole just showing trailers or not trailers, just showing cinematics and trailers, or like not really showing any gameplay has become very common.
Yeah, and
That
it's-
that blows my mind. 'Cause again, like you just said, it doesn't tell me shit about the game. Ooh, you
Yeah.
got a nice cinematic. Good job. Okay,
Well,
what am I gonna do with that?
yeah, well, a lot of times that I've been noticing it comes down to, a lot of times it's because they don't want you to show that they don't want to show you the gameplay. And like a lot of times when I see a trailer with absolutely zero gameplay, and like, it might not be the only trailer. If you look at all the other content they put out, there's no gameplay. I usually take that as a huge warning sign that
Oh yeah,
the game it probably doesn't have good gameplay if they're not
No, it
willing to
doesn't.
show you any. It's
Yeah,
it's
how-
a huge
yeah.
red flag these days, and I've seen a lot of games that came out using that style of trailer, and lo and behold,
game shit.
yeah,
Because here's the thing: how are you not gonna show me a bit of what I'm going to be doing 90%, at least 90% of the game? How are you not going to show me what's the mainstay of the game? Like the cinematics in any game, doesn't matter what game it is the cinematic pieces are important, but they're plot points to showcase something really important. But between that and the next cinematic, there's a whole bunch of gameplay to get from from that point to that point. That's what you're going to be doing. Like, how are you not going to show me that? But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it goes back to what you say, Matt. A lot of it is because they have shit gameplay. Greg, I know you want to say something, but I did want to address old man Garrus had put in chat, was talking about a sell sheet and a digital one. And Garrus, I will fully admit to not knowing what the fuck that is. If you want to explain, feel free, man. Because I have no idea what that is.
nothing
There-
hard.
Or Greg, you can.
Well,
kind
the
of,
cell sheet
piggyback
piece
off
is,
that.
is kind of like putting together a blueprint to the go live date for your particular product, which is all the things that you need to put into, first off, the product itself, which will include your market research, which is going to be, really going out and talking to people, finding out, hey, what do you want? That's the biggest question. What do you want? What is the piece that you need? What is the niche that you need to fill with this product? Because that's the primary purpose, no matter what, any product, whether it's a game or whatever it is to provide value to your customer. That's the thing. You've got to do that if you want to be successful. If you're doesn't matter what it is you're creating. If you're not providing value for your customer, then you don't have a product. You've spent a bunch of time making something, but it's more of a personal use hobby type of thing. Now,
Gotcha.
the sell sheet and the market research piece will help you to figure out what is the value. What is the value that you can provide to your customer, and who's your customer? Which, I mean, those are conversations that we've had many times. You know, the who's our customer conversation, and figuring that piece out. Take a second here. I just want to look at what Garrus put up here. Single piece paper covers exactly what. Yes, exactly. A lot in many ways, it basically is just that. It is your check sheet to go down through to make sure that you've covered all the bases on it. The key elements of it. Number one, product. I'm gonna say customer first. Is, you know, who's your customer first, because you got to start there with to be able to create value for your customer. A lot of times what happens, especially, you know, for our case, and, you know, just to back up for just a second, we're primarily talking, this conversation is primarily kind of focused into the indie space for video games. And we as a studio, we've done work on video games. I mean, primarily that's what we have done up until now. It's content creation for video games, and VFX style work. But our focus right now is in the TTRPG space. So that's, it might be a little bit confusing sometimes, but you'll hear us drawing correlation between the two, because the path that you take in both cases is very, very, very similar. And the customer in a lot of cases is the same as well. So there's that sell sheet piece. Number one, figure out who your customer is. Do that through market data research, figuring out, okay, what do people want that lines up with what we are creating, and then you focus your product around that, and then it goes into that marketing piece of, you know, what I was talking about before, which is got to get their attention, got to get to the point quickly. It sounds like it's really complicated, but to be quite honest with you, it's not. If you lay out what the steps are as being very simply, find out who your customer is. You know, what are you creating this product for? And that's the value add piece to it. What do they want? There's your value. And then what are the steps to get your product from development to them in their hands? Mm-hmm. There you go. That's a sell sheet in a, you know, very high level view.
Cool. Well, thank you for that information. I wrote down what you were saying, Greg, and what Garrus was putting in chat. I mean, again, this is all important information.
Yeah, Garrus went a little bit more into the back end details as well, because absolutely, I mean, there's a lot of steps from, you know, concept to product development to publishing to, you know, the marketing piece to it. There's a lot of steps in there. It's, you know, there's a lot of work involved too. As anybody who's, you know, been remotely involved in product development throughout their life knows, you know, it's not we make it, you buy it. It just doesn't work. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. And that kind of leads me into my next point, kind of really summarizing kind of what we've just talked about, but also an integral part is storefront pages. You know, making sure that your storefront, whether it be digital or physical, based on the way you're going to display your game and showcase it to people, is, again, ties into that. Make sure it's easily and quickly digestible for your audience, and a way for them to understand and kind of really figure out fast if this is something that's going to be of interest to them. Because I mean, very, very obviously, people nowadays don't want to waste their time, or at least they feel like they don't want to waste their time yet. I'm willing to bet 90% of them are on the couch right now watching Netflix.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, the storefronts are those are the place where you is the place where it's the absolutely most important that people are able to tell what it is you're even doing. Like in a digital space, as a small creator, most likely that's going to be like your Steam store page. So that's where you gotta have, like, and the way those are usually set up, they usually have like some trailers on a kind of like playlist and a bunch of pictures, like pictures or screenshots they can put in. Those need to tell those need to tell people exactly what's going on, and further down in like the description, you need to like explain what the game is. Not just like a kind of like intro into the story, but also like how it plays. People have to know what's even going on, what they'd even be buying. And then you go to like the physical storefronts. It can be hard to have as much information out from them like than on your store page online, but that's where something like, say, cover art becomes incredibly important. Like whether you're selling like a physical copy of a digital game, just in a case, or if you're writing a TTRPG and you're selling the player handbook. Like people say, don't judge a book by its cover, but at the same time, first
You gotta.
impressions are incredibly important. So
Oh yeah.
if you have a player's handbook, it's a big meaty book most of the time, depending on the game.
Mhm.
And if the cover just has like some uninteresting looking art, I mean, chances are a lot of people aren't going to give that the time of day. There might be some who are just very curious and are willing to give it a chance anyway, but you desperately want that cover to look great. And
Oh yeah.
it needs to kind of like it needs to show them like what kind of setting your world is taking place in. Like, if you had like a book for, say, Cyberpunk, and the cover art was like, instead of the kind of dark, gritty tech that you usually see, like sunshine and rainbows, you'd probably be like, huh? Like, and then they go into the book and there they see the dark, gritty nature. It's like that would give people some whiplash.
Oh yeah.
Probably enough to make them just put the thing down because it doesn't look.
Yeah,
it just looks
doesn't
like
match
an
up.
incoherent mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not only does the cover art need to again align with what you're trying to sell, in the case of the game, but it also the cover art, the way the initial look of your product, no matter what it is, but in this case, a game, the way it's going to look is going to set the tone for everything else. That's what people are going to expect. That's the level of quality people are going to expect. So, I mean, you better make sure you bring the goods. Especially if you want to stand out. It's either you want, at least in my opinion, you want it to be something that's unique, but something that's quality. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to get the best artist on the planet. You don't have to get Picasso out of his grave to come do your artwork for you. But you definitely don't want to penny pinch on that.
Yeah, it just
well played, Moon Girl. Well played.
Yeah, like it needs to be good enough to at least look good. I mean, again, it doesn't have to be made by the best artists in the world, but it needs to at least look good enough and have the tone that you wish to set.
Yeah, 100%. Another important point is it has to be so, and this is for news studios, but also I would say this kind of particular point is more for established studios that have already made a kind of a name for themselves. Don't forget the newcomers, and what I mean by that is, don't forget that while you have already built your audience, you already have your followers, your dedicated early adopters, people who already know your product. Don't forget the people that don't start making your advertisements, your store page, or the product itself geared towards the guys who already know what they're getting into. I mean, a perfect example is D&D. love or hate Hasbro, and all that mess going on right now. Whenever you pick up a piece of D&D content, um, whether it's the actual player's handbook or I believe they're called like Jumpstart kits, right? Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, quick
I
starts.
think they're called.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. Quick starts. That's what I was looking for. I couldn't remember. Quick starts. They're very to the point. They're very well made. They're very well packaged and put together. Meaning, me as someone completely new to TTRPGs, completely new to D&D, I can pick up a quick start, flip through it, and I know what I'm getting myself into, and I know more or less how to play the game. And that's an important piece because even after you're established, even after your name's out there, there's still going to be people coming across your stuff. And if you want to grab those people, you got to make sure they know what the hell they're looking at. You have to make that readily available and readily apparent, even when you're established. Probably even more so, because again, that's bringing in new blood. That's bringing in new faces and new names to play your game or watch your movie or whatever the product is.
And it's especially as a small studio because you know or a startup because
especially at those two,
you don't have the stage at that moment. You do not have the stage, so you're literally you are like a grain of sand in the ocean, and reaching people is the key thing. It's two pieces I want to add to that stick out to me. Number one is, and this is something that we've discussed a lot. It is never too soon to start talking about your product. Absolutely never too soon.
No, it is not.
Don't be fooled or tricked into thinking, because your mind kind of plays tricks on you, and you think, well, I've got to have this fully developed thing that I can go out and talk about to people. No, that's in many cases that's like a self-defense mechanism you have because that's a totally different topic. But I mean, don't worry about that. Go talk about the product. Okay, you've already got a basic idea of what you want to do. Go talk about it. Share the idea with people. That's where you're collecting your data from. Sharing the idea with people, talking to them about it. That's where you're getting the information you need to make a value for that customer. So start talking about your product right away, or just remember it's never too soon, and always talk about your product. Now, it doesn't mean to the point of being annoying with people, but I mean, don't get to this point where you're thinking, well, geez, I've spent the last 6 months talking to everybody I know, and I just keep talking and talking and talking. They've all heard it now. No, they haven't. Trust me, they haven't. There's how many billion people in this world? You've only touched a handful of them. Keep talking about it, and just keep talking about it. You don't stop. That's these big IPs that are out there. Something like, we'll just go back to Cyberpunk for just a second. I mean, Cyberpunk's been around for a long time.
Since '88.
And it's just really over the last few years become more mainstream. So it takes a long time to reach massive amounts of people, and there are still people out there, even with the the 2027 game, the Edge Runners series on Netflix. There's still people out there who have no idea what you're talking about. If you mention Cyberpunk to them, they have no idea.
Yeah,
no clue.
Yep. Yeah. And the ironic part is, ever since, well, it started with a book, but ever since, I mean, you can mention Cyberpunk, and you can trace it back to, at least the IP, you can trace it back to Blade Runner. People still won't connect the two. But yeah, I mean, another good example, Greg, to piggyback off that is Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons has been around since what, 79?
Yep.
And it's only now, in the last 5 to 10 years, become as popular as it is.
Yeah, I mean,
a game that has spanned officially 5 editions, but we don't talk about 4th edition. Multiple compendiums, multiple, I mean, there's been multiple movies, TV shows, kind of inspired movies and TV shows. games. I mean, you just now have uh, the official. I'm going to use air quotes there because the first official D&D movie was way back when, with Marlon Wayans and I can't remember the other guy's name.
Mhm.
But anyway, Honor Among Thieves, which is a great movie, by the way. I highly recommend go watch it. But it's now after 40, almost 50 years where that game is getting and I'm going to say this a little bit begrudgingly, the recognition it deserves because it's a fantastic game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I say grudgingly because reasons.
Recent events.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But the thing is, it's like you don't build an empire in a day, and
No,
I think
I don't.
I mean there are very rare cases of someone putting something out there that is like previously unknown and it blowing up. Like it is possible and it has happened, but that should by no means be anyone's expectation for how it'll be when you release your thing. Like you need, if you want to realistically be successful, you gotta put the effort to have people know that you even made a thing. And that's why like the advertising piece is so important, and not just like advertising once. If you tell something about, like, you put out like just a single advertisement that just plays once in its entirety, people are going to see it and forget it. There's a reason why, if you're watching TV or videos on the internet, be it YouTube, Twitch, or whatever other video sharing service that runs ads, you're probably going to see the same ads again and again and again. And yeah, sometimes it can get a little annoying, but at the same time, those things exist. They're in your mind because it's been hammered into you repetitively.
There's a marketing piece behind that. A person has to see something 8 to 10 times before they'll make a purchasing decision. That's the common knowledge when it comes to marketing. I believe it's at least 8 times before you're going to make a purchasing decision. There are rare people out there who will see it once and then run and buy it. But generally speaking, they've got to see it at least 8 times before they're going to make a purchasing decision. Sometimes more.
Yeah, and like that's part of that is just rooted in human psychology. Like a lot of times people will only learn something through repetition. How many times do you try something for the first time and get it right after like just trying once?
Mm-hmm.
Even after the second time, is it completely right? Maybe not, but maybe you're closer. But the more times you repeat that thing, the more you learn and more to remember about the actual process of how to do that task. So, and the same goes for like even an advertisement. The more times you see that advertisement, the more likely you are to just remember it's a thing. Even barring whether or not you're going to spend money on it, the important thing is that people just know it exists. Because that's the first step. If you want people to buy your game, first they have to know it exists.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that just means they have to be reminded from time to time, whether that's releasing new trailers on your social medias, or if they're part of subscribe to your newsletter, so you send them emails and stuff. A single mention is never going to do it, because they're just going to forget. And by the time you eventually come out with your game, they're like, what is this? Did I sign up for this newsletter? Like, they're not going to remember, and they're probably just going to pass it up.
100% true.
Yeah, and that's true with the social media piece for sure. Is the consistency and repetition of if you're using those channels, which nowadays you have to use those channels. If you're not using social media to as a connection with your audience, you're missing out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But you have to, it can't be a one and done. It can't be post sporadically here and there, a little something. You do have to have some consistency about it. And that consistency has to have some regularity to it, where they come to expect you to do an update or something, because they'll be looking for it. And if you don't continue to build the relationship all the way through, you're going to lose them. They're going to fall off here and there.
Yep. You got to build on that kind of initial grab, and build that, like you said, Greg, build that relationship, because people are fickle these days. People are very, very fickle, especially in the in the gaming industry, with the next latest and greatest around the corner, assumably. But, and I mean, that kind of leads me into one of my next points, is kind of knowing your next step. And we've kind of been talking about this, this entire time, is knowing kind of where you as a studio and your product is going. Old Man Garrus says, but that's part of what your marketing needs to focus on, keeping your audience excited. Exactly. And again, that goes hand in hand with this point, is knowing your next step, creating awareness, creating interest, you as a studio making the decision, and then taking action based on decision, based on your market research, the feedback from your audience, even feedback from internally from fellow your developers and your your creative teams and things like that, on, hey, look, this is what we see that people are liking, this is what they're not liking, here's how we can adjust, things like that. There's a lot of moving parts to this thing, but there are also a lot of systems that have worked to make it successful, and I think here's the thing, and again, I will say this, I'm definitely not a market person, sorry, a marketing person, but it always surprises me when learning about these things and then watching what studios do and how they behave, and then they wonder why whatever it is they put out is a flop, or why, I mean, essentially, yeah, why people don't like the product. I mean, I think a good example is can't remember exactly what it is, but or what part it is, but D&D has started putting out stuff for I guess they call it, what, 5.5. I can't remember exactly what the name of the upcoming
D&D
edition is going to be.
1?
I think that's the name. Yeah, that's the name that they started with, but I think they've changed it. But anyway, the Unearthed Arcana. And for those of you guys who don't know, Unearthed Arcana is basically D&D's playtest environment, where they release a bunch of compendiums and pieces of work out into the community to playtest, essentially live playtests.
And unless you're as old as me, then it's a second edition compendium book that was created to complement the original system.
Yeah, that guy, old as dirt. But yeah, so they release all of that stuff whenever they're testing a new compendium. In this case, they're testing the next version of D&D that's going to come out in 2024, I believe. And there've been feedback, obviously, rightfully so. I pay attention to a lot of D&D creators who have gone over that. And me personally, I'm going to keep an eye on what has been said about the things that folks like or don't like, and see if when it comes out, they listened. That's always been a sticking point for me personally. Like, I mean, we for the last 50 minutes, we've been going through this list of things that studios can do to be successful in their marketing and the creation of their product and having it hit the market and be well received. Yet time and again, we see studios, whether I don't know who shits the bed in this process, because they don't listen. It's like, fucking listen. Like the public have told you what they want to see, and oftentimes, I'm going to use not oftentimes, but there are particular individuals within most communities. Now, here's the thing: there's no single person, for the most part, that will know a game better than the folks that develop it. However, you do have individuals, players, who their brains just work that way. I mean, hell, you might as well freaking hire them because they can take your game, play it, and really understand the nuance of what you were trying to go for here. If you, let's say you didn't hit the mark on what you really wanted, they can see that, and they can see the parts that are good and the parts that are bad. And oftentimes, those individuals will offer quality critiques and criticisms, and oftentimes ways to improve. I mean, here's the thing: another perfect example is, and that's on the TTRPG side, or rather, that's on the game as a whole industry side. But in D&D, that's unearthed arcane, and I've seen plenty of content creators put together lists of changes that could be made to make a piece of content better. But on the gaming side, the video games, that's the modding community. You have modders that have come out with basically a fix, and we're going to use 2077 as another example. But yeah, the whole modding community came out with fixes to their core game that ideally, CD Projekt Red would have had, already in there, but they didn't, and that's okay. But it's like you have these people who, granted they're a small handful who know the game well enough to offer these critical critiques and feedback and ways to improve and fix. You motherfuckers don't listen. Someone explain that shit to me, like I'm stupid.
Well, like there are some cases where obviously making changes costs money, obviously, because
Well,
you
yeah,
got to get the team together and pretty much build the new thing or change whatever they say. There is that piece, but I mean, yeah, like I think the important thing is that
Tell us how you really feel, Rob.
I honestly, and here's the thing: it could be because I'm not well versed in like that business aspect of things. Because yeah, I'm aware, cost resource, cost money, cost personnel. I get that, but it at least for me, wouldn't it cost more money not to like really fix the thing, and then have people like leave your game or not get it, or I mean, I don't know. For guys who have more business acumen than I do in that regard, please tell me, am I wrong? Like, am I missing? Is there something I'm missing? Greg, don't sit there and just smile. Like, tell me, am I wrong?
I mean, honestly, I think part of that goes back to, because we've talked about this before, essentially feedback. Because I think the important thing, because essentially what you're talking about is, you want people to listen to the feedback they're getting, which is definitely always important. But how to act on that can sometimes be a very different matter. Because I mean, one, like Garrus talked about it before, like much earlier in the stream, about taking feedback and essentially taking it with grace instead of taking it personally. That's like the first step. You just gotta see it for what it is and not take it as a personal attack, which sometimes can be hard because obviously when you make a game, you've spent years of your life on the thing, so like there is that personal interest, but you just gotta try to take a step back for that. But like when it comes to the feedback you get, sometimes people, you gotta like sift through the good and the bad feedback. And like sometimes when someone says I want this or I want that, it may not even always be the best idea. Because a lot of times you have a random player for the game may not be terribly aware of all the systems in place, and their suggestion, while could possibly fix the issue that they want it to fix, but it could also throw something else out of balance. And so there's the more accurate thing to do sometimes is to look at the root issue of what they're complaining about and figure out a solution there instead of just taking their solution at face value. I mean, sometimes there may be some good solutions that people may provide. You should always keep your eye out for that. But that doesn't mean just blindly listen to everything that random Joe Schmo says. You gotta kind of put your own judgment in there to make the best decision. Because if you bend over backwards for any complaint that the viewer that your fan base has, implementing every change that they want, then it's going to kind of fall into chaos eventually.
Yeah, no, I get that, and just to catch the listeners up on our chat. So we've had a couple of chats here that I want to kind of hit on before we move forward. So old man Garrus asks the question, why don't you fix what you release versus seeing them move forward a different project? He's basically just trying to clarify, and my response to that was, it's the latter. For me personally, it's the latter. Especially when there are instances of quality feedback. And again, Matt, I agree with you. As a development studio, I mean, irregardless of what you're developing, as someone who's creating a product, you don't take every piece of feedback and try to implement it. However, like I was saying earlier, there are those few people who they may not understand all the nuances, but they do see the bigger picture of what you're trying to create and do offer quality pieces of feedback to stay in keeping with that vision, but also fix what the community might see as not where it should be. And I'm not saying if it's one person, and usually it's not. Usually it's not just one person saying that. Usually, if it's something that's been brought up a number of times, and that's usually the case, then there's some merit there. And let's see what we got here. We have a couple
Garrus is kind of doing my job for me. I like it.
You get to sit there and look pretty.
Well, I feel like you two think very similarly.
Well,
they do. Having spoken to both of them, they do think very, very similar, which is not a bad thing. I mean, again, you have to have, in any business, you have to have the person who has that business acumen to be like, hey, look, the money's just not there. We don't have the resources to do it right now. Or, you have to have someone with that. With that kind of level of understanding of how things need to work.
Right. And what we're really hitting on here, there's backing up just a moment, there's a lot of things that go into this whole process of taking concept to market. And by all means, do really good research. Very, very important.
Yeah.
Listen to people up front, go out and ask questions. And here's the thing. If you're asking questions that do not challenge you, you're asking the wrong questions. I'll tell you that right up front. You want to ask questions that challenge this guy right here. You don't want to ask questions that challenge the customer or the person that your object is not to challenge them. Your object is to challenge yourself. Figure out what question you need to ask that's going to put you in an uncomfortable spot. And ask that question, because that's what you need the answer to be able to make value for your customer. There are a whole list of things post-released. When it comes to a game, there's a whole list of things that can go wrong, and we've seen those things. We continue to see those things in the market all the time. There's no game that comes out and it's perfect absolutely at release date. It just doesn't happen that way. And that's the challenge for these companies, and it really comes down to, if you didn't do everything you needed to do up front to garner the support for the product, okay, so the product didn't get a good launch, the money's not going to be there. That's really what it comes down to. If you all these things cost money, and we can look at a game and say, well, you screwed this up and you screwed that up, and that's great, but if the launch did not go well, those problems will not get fixed. That's just how it works. There's no money there to fix it. Simple as that.
And that much I do get, yeah. Like, if you don't have the resources right now, or if the money ain't there, then...
There are other instances that happen where decisions are made and problems don't get fixed that, probably could be fixed. And a lot of that still comes down to finance, but sometimes it literally comes down to the decisions were made initially to release a product that wasn't exactly right. And that's just what they're going with. And the unfortunate part is that's never going to go over well in the marketplace. But as with anything, here's the approach sometimes that's taken in business. Agree with it or do not agree with it, doesn't matter. This is the approach. That too will pass. Simple as that. People will be upset about it initially. Within 6 months, 12 months, it's no longer an issue. It goes away.
Yeah.
Old Man Garrus brings up an excellent example, talking about No Man's Sky. Now,
Yeah.
I think we've talked about it before about how 2077 was a bit of a redemption story. I feel like No Man's Sky was that times 10, because that game was absolutely it was ridiculous when that game launched, because all of the PR at the start raised expectations, no pun intended, sky high. And when it came out, there were so many things that were promised that was never there. And I think part of that was due to the guy that they had at all of those interviews and all that stuff, because he obviously was not a PR person. And you could kind of see it, he was always kind of nervous and uncomfortable just being there. He was just one of the guys working on the game. I don't remember his exact position, but he's definitely not someone. He's definitely not a public speaker by any means. And he ended up saying some things, promising features that never made it in the game. And that's why when the game launched, people started calling it No Man's Lie. That was a huge thing people were saying, because
Oh wow, you waited outside of GameStop till midnight to think. Damn, that's dedication, Garrus. I'm just catching up with chat over here.
There are a lot of games out there, Matt, that are exactly that. They are a production out of passion, where someone created something because they were passionate about this thing. And
we're a perfect example of that.
Well, and yes, but we still, that's the piece behind this. Okay, when you take a creative and that creative jumps in and starts a business and tries to run a company, you end up with these products that falter. I hate to say, sorry, you can shoot me later, but
no, it's a fact. I completely agree with you. That's why I will die on this hill, because as a creative myself, I know where my weaknesses lie, and my weakness is not in business. It's not in handling the day-to-day operations of those things. And you need someone who you need more than someone. You need a group of someones who know how to do that. So number one, because at the end of the day, it's still a business. You got to handle that business part.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have people, you have to have a person, to be able to handle that and guide the business, it includes everything, in the right direction. That leaves the creative people and the other people, the developers, to create the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you still have to have that business acumen. You still have to have someone with that knowledge to make sure the lights stay on.
Well, there's a balance, and that's
exactly.
the balance is between, again, value for your customer versus value for you. And that's not even about money. That's about creating honest to goodness value, something that they are that's going to fulfill them, allow them, they're going to be able to enjoy it. They're going to be able to have a real experience, which is what they're looking for, and the experience that you're telling them they're going to have. But on the other side of it, also allows your creatives to tell their story. And there's a lot of balancing that goes on there. And a lot of times what you can do is you over process the product. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you put so much into this product that it becomes so expensive that you're either going to lose money for a long time, which is not a good business model and tends to lead to things that never get fixed because you just can't afford to fix them. Or you go to the other side of it and you don't, that's either one is you're over processing, or you're really not adding enough value for your customer. The sweet spot's in the middle, where you're giving the customer the value, what you promised them. And my philosophy is really simple. you underpromise and overdeliver. That's as simple as it gets, because then you're creating the wow factor for it. Now, what that means, though, is that you're going to have to create something that is exceptional to be able to underpromise and overdeliver on it, because the promise has to be good. That's part of the marketing piece. The promise has to be good. So you're going to have to create an exceptional product so that you can meet that criteria of, hey, this is what we are telling you you're going to get. And then when they get it, they get that plus this. Fantastic. Yeah. That's the wow factor. That's what you want.
Yeah, no, 100%, and I completely agree with that. And again, that goes back to all the points that we've stated throughout the episode. You know, knowing your audience, making sure you're creating something for that audience. You know, knowing your next steps as a company. But to kind of keep the listeners up on track with the chat, Old Man Garrus brings up Star Citizen. Yes, I am super excited for that. But yeah, I mean, you are correct. You know, Chris Roberts' name is attached to that, which is why, I mean, it has a damn near cult following. I mean, it's been in development for over 10 years. It has a current, I think, I don't want to say budget, but I think the current basically funding towards the game is like $559 million, $560 million. Like that's a price of several movies for this one game. You know, and granted, I think if they can pull it off, and it's looking better and better every time I check, because I keep up with it.
That's either a really high price tag or expecting a whole lot of downloads, or both.
A bit of both. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the game at all, Greg, but it's going to be pretty. If it meets what it wants to do, it's going to be a pretty massive game. And I will go on record saying it will be one of the few revolutionary games of the last 10 years.
Ooh, you're right on that hype train.
No, just because of what I've seen, both from a creative standpoint, but from a development standpoint, like the software development standpoint of what they're doing with that game is it's definitely, I see why it's taken it this long. Ring says I'm almost fearful that it will be too much, and yeah, I mean, exactly what Greg said. We'll see. It very honestly, the market could just not be ready for it.
I mean, there's that, but also like it being too much. Like if there's too much in your game, like the too many,
it could be overwhelming.
Yeah, it could be overwhelming, and like it doesn't matter if like piece by piece each of these are amazing and they work well. Just the fact that you're overloading people. And that's and like based on like some of the things that you've said, like I mean I kind of have that concern as well, because like one, there's overloading, and also that's a high skill ceiling to be able to play, because you have a lot of stuff you'll need to remember to even properly play the game.
Yeah, barrier to entry is going to be high for sure. Yes.
Yeah. And Gemma said sometimes a movie can have the perfect actors and story and still fall short in execution. Yeah, I mean 100%. A game, same thing. And I see your point, man. I do, to a point, agree with it. Like, as someone who's played the last couple of Free Flies,
they're going to have to hire Keanu Reeves for that one.
They will. It can be overwhelming. It is a lot, and hopefully that's something that they're that their teams have considered as well. That okay, we want to piecemeal this, to people, because this is a big steak to eat. He is just chilling. Well, is he just chilling though? Because I'm pretty sure they've already started on. Well, at the very least, they've started talks on John Wick 5. Pretty sure.
I mean, I'm sure Keanu Reeves is a pretty busy guy. I feel like everyone wants a piece of Keanu.
I
I'm
mean, it's
sure it's
Keanu
like,
Reeves, man.
it's like, hey, be in my game
Oh,
like
he
you're in
is.
2077, or be part of my movie. Like, like the
Yeah.
man, like his reputation is so like just
It's
sterling.
spotless. It's fine. Yeah,
Like
it's fucking spotless, and it's
like
deserved too.
yeah, he's done an excellent job at maintaining his public image as just a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And you know what? If it's all an act, he's been doing his job well. I mean, he's an
Where
actor.
man deserves
we
an
never know,
Oscar. He
but
deserves a fucking Oscar. Dude,
yeah,
that dude has had the best performance of any actor ever.
yeah,
30
but like,
oh wait, what is he? 50 something now? 50-year performance.
wait,
See,
really?
I-
Is that old
I look-
already?
I
Yeah.
I
Shit,
look
he
at-
doesn't look it.
I look
No.
at Keanu Reeves in a different light, and not in a negative light at all. I absolutely love his work, and he seems like a fantastic human being, but he is a guy who has masterfully built a brand, and that's
Oh, yeah.
you want to look at brand building. People like him, that's who you want to focus your attention on, those people, because they will show you how to build a brand.
Yeah, I mean him, another guy that has built his brand in kind of the same vein. I mean, there's two that come to mind. Johnny Depp, despite all the the things that he's been through lately, and Tom Hardy. And I know we're getting way off topic, but it's okay, because I think honestly, I think these individuals can offer insight and kind of good qualities to a spouse, even in the studio.
Yeah, and like
Keanu Reeves is fucking almost 60 years old. He does not look it.
Yeah, he looks like he could be like in his 30s or something.
I swear to God, when he was in Bram Stoker's Dracula, my man's got bit by Dracula. He's immortal. He's fucking immortal. Okay.
Man has aged ultra gracefully.
He's Benjamin Button. God damn it.
Yeah, but like, reputation of like certain individuals is a huge thing. Like Old Man Garrus mentioned Chris Roberts, Keanu Reeves carried a lot of Cyberpunk 2077's PR. Like, because he was involved, there was a lot more hype involved for that game. And like, yeah, big names they matter a lot. Hideo Kojima, after he left Konami, because Konami was being Konami, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
He went off on his own and made Death Stranding, which, regardless of how you feel about the game, a lot more people knew about because of the name of Hideo Kojima. If it didn't have his name behind it,
it wouldn't have.
It wouldn't have.
Heard of it.
Yeah, it wouldn't have gotten the attention it did.
I mean, this is true. Yeah. So Old Man Garrus just dropped a couple of numbers for us. So officially $597 million for Star Citizen so far, and to basically keep that in perspective. Yeah, I know, right? Jesus. So you could have made. Let's see. Red Dead cost $210 million. Fortnite's cost $300K. And Fortnite now, I don't know. I mean, I don't even want to look at the profits they've made for Epic Games because I fucking hate that game. Cyberpunk made cost 174 million. GTA 5 cost 137, and even Elden Ring cost 200 mil. So you could have. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Red Dead. I have not played it though. So you could have made literally 2, maybe even 3 games. For the whole price of 4 games if you count trash that is Fortnite. I hate that game. For what it costs to make Star Citizen. Moon Girl, he is half Asian, so yeah, Asians do stop aging.
That does explain some things. But say what you will about Fortnite, you can't deny that it was incredibly, and I mean incredibly, successful, and the fact that it has so many crossovers. Like, Marvel's Avengers has nothing on Fortnite.
It does. Fucking piece of shit.
What's an interesting thing about Fortnite's development is that eventually, at the beginning, it wasn't even meant to be the battle royale it turned out as. Initially, you were supposed to be setting traps and building forts for waves of zombies to go through. That was the initial game, and that's actually in its earlier stages. That's like people could play that.
Hmm.
It was kind of like
Yeah, that was supposed to be like its campaign mode or something like that.
yeah, it was kind
I
of
think.
like if anyone's ever played Orcs Must Die series, it was
Yeah.
like that kind of, and not as good in my opinion, but that was the thought behind it. And then they pivoted to the battle royale, and well, that
So what
was
they're-
an extremely
It's what-
that was a very good move on their part, to say
That-
the least.
That's the market research piece right there.
Mhm.
That's what their customers
Yeah.
wanted. You know, they just simply let the customer lead the way. Their customer wanted what the product that they have now, and they very successfully altered the product to be what the customer wants it to be.
Yeah,
They created the game that the people who play it want to play. Fantastic.
Yeah, like the battle royale genre was really on the rise around that time. I think the kind of like leader around that time when Fortnite first came out as a battle royale was probably PUBG. I think they were the heavy hitters at that time. Fortnite came out and just people forgot about PUBG real quick. It still has people playing it, but they were no longer the top dog.
Yeah.
And yeah, they definitely chose the right time because Battle Royale was up and coming and lots of people were enjoying it. I think the genre is kind of calming down somewhat. I think partly because
it doesn't have the same hype that it did.
I think partly because just Fortnite has such an overwhelming dominance in it. I feel like it's somewhat difficult for others to try to move in at this point.
Yeah, it's Fortnite's world. They're just living in it.
Pretty much.
I think that's a key. There's a key point to be made there, and you know, when it comes to the development piece in here, and you know, our title, nobody cares about your game. Well, and here's the thing with this: no game is for everybody, and I think we tend to get caught up in that idea. When you're creating something, you create it with this grand idea that everybody's going to love what I create. And that's, no, they're not. There's people who are going to absolutely hate it. There's people who are going to love it. And that's where, you know, that's just, it's a reality that you have to resolve yourself to understand, that some people are just going to hate it, no matter what it is. You know, your finished product is just going to be garbage to them. They just don't like it. It's fine. Yeah, you will be.
Yeah, I've never played Stardew Valley.
I've never played it either, but I've watched
game.
some people play it.
It's a great game.
It is garbage.
First of all, how dare you? Second of all, it is one of those games, and you can
I gotta
tell
play
these...
it. I gotta fucking play it, man. Because I've watched you. I've not watched you play it, Matt, but I've seen, because Matt and I are friends on Steam. I don't know if Greg and I are friends on Steam.
Might not be.
We have to fix that because we've been friends for years now. But anyway, me and Matt are friends on Steam, and sometimes I watch him. He'll play like Stardew Valley or whatever. I think he's playing something else now.
Yeah,
I can't remember what you're playing now.
I just recently finished a game.
We're allowed to play
Chained
games,
Echoes, which if you're a fan of like old school Final Fantasy, the way that used to play, Chained Echoes is a pretty good game that keeps that style of gameplay pretty well alive. It's pretty good. I had a lot of fun with it. But Stardew Valley, that's one of those games, and I think you can probably tell when you see it. It's a game that you could tell that someone was really putting their heart and soul into it, and that they loved making it. I've heard I've honestly heard nothing but good things about Stardew Valley. Yeah, like you can tell those games when you see them, when people have fun making it, or when they put their heart and soul in, like they're really trying to make something special out of it. You can see that in Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley is one. There is definitely a community built around that game. There is definitely. And there's several games out there that are like that. That they're not the. Got me off next time. There are several games out there that are you know, they are really focused on, you know, creating the product they want to create and building the community around the product. And you can generally tell because they don't necessarily have a huge budget to begin with. And that's reflected in the content. I mean, they don't have the best graphics contents. They're not trying to use the newest, most powerful engines and stuff like that.
Never, old man Garrus, never.
That's the fun for us of this our platform. We're not about trying to control our audience and all those things.
I mean, you guys help make the content.
Now, if we get somebody that's obscene and vulgar and just nasty and disruptive to the program, absolutely, they're gone. And I have no qualms about that. I will kick somebody immediately if they want to be a jerk. But otherwise, this is our platform to talk with you guys. I mean, really, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. This is us, telling kind of you guys what we know about the industry and what we've learned, and getting y'all feedback off of it, and kind of where you guys come from. You're not a jerk.
Wow.
You're just an agent of chaos, which is okay.
No, I was just thinking, because this whole time we've been talking a lot about like the marketing behind a game and how that's a big step to success. Because I was just thinking about a game that had pretty much no marketing and actually turned out very well. Because again, like as I've been saying, there are exceptions to this rule, rare as they are. But it was a game that was actually shadow dropped by Bethesda, meaning they only ever announced it on the day it released. They did not market this thing whatsoever. I don't know the reason for that. Maybe they just didn't believe in the product that they were putting out. But it was a game called Hi-Fi Rush, and it was like it was like a character action game, kind of like how old school God of War was, that kind of action, but also had rhythm elements to it. And it was very musical. And the weird thing is, it did well. People loved the game. You see a bunch of playthroughs on YouTube, people streaming it on Twitch. So it just sort of came out of nowhere. People loved it, and the funny thing is, it came out at the same time as Forspoken. I forget who the publisher for that one was, but it was marketed a lot, and no one liked it. It was a bad game. So it's kind of funny to think about how something that was shadow dropped with no marketing actually ended up outperforming something that was marketed. Again, it's a very rare instance, but it was very interesting to kind of watch that. And yeah, Hi-Fi Rush, it was another one of those games where it definitely had some of that heart and soul in it. You could tell the people making it were just having fun because they put in. It's definitely a game with a sense of humor, and they're not afraid to just be silly sometimes.
Bethesda is a unique situation also, though, because Bethesda has an absolutely monstrous community built up around that company. And there's a huge modding. There's a huge modding community that's built up around that community, so they get a lot of free advertising.
Oh yeah, definitely. Exactly. Like it probably wouldn't have gotten that big if it didn't have the Bethesda name behind it. At the same time, it's nothing like Elder Scrolls, like Bethesda's, or Elder Scrolls, or even Fallout. Bethesda's like main things. Because we kind of know how both of those are. Mm-hmm. Whether they're, because one may be fantasy, the other may be sci-fi, but there's a very similar feel to both series. Hi-Fi Rush is completely different. It doesn't play like the other two. The tone isn't the same. I was honestly, sometimes I forget it even comes from Bethesda because it's so different from everything they put out. And again, maybe that's the reason why they didn't advertise it, because they just thought, like, this isn't what we do. People aren't going to like this. Maybe that might explain some of it.
They didn't want it to impact their brand. Absolutely.
Yeah, but turns out it's done well for their brand. It was a well-received game. And frankly, that's something Bethesda kind of needs under their belt right now.
Honestly,
yeah.
it's the same reason that we are developing a fantasy stream. Same exact reason. It's because we don't want to. Number one, we want the versatility, but number two is we don't want to be locked into just being a sci-fi content group.
Yeah, because Cyberpunk definitely, sci-fi and usually with a darker tone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fantasy can also have a darker tone, but again, there's some variety in there to try to pull in.
Ours is going to be PG-13, right?
You can bring your toddlers to watch.
Well, PG-13, Matt. Come on now, not PG-2. I mean,
we're going to be playing the equivalent of Barney in D&D. Yes.
Yeah, we are developing
on the purple dinosaur race.
We are developing a fantasy concept right now. It'll be based off of an existing game system, but it's to diversify our offering as far as the stream goes. So we have a fantasy game that we can create content for and stream that for everybody. But the big reason behind it is because we don't want to lock ourselves in. We have a flagship product that we're working on right now. We are developing a game. And I'm going to say it's kind of a mixture at this point. I don't want to go too far into it because we're very early and that we're still working through mechanics and things like that. So the story is a little bit loose. But it's going to
early stage development.
You're the project lead, Matt. You want to? Can you expound on what I'm talking about here a little bit? Or
he's doing a fantastic job, by the way.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what even can be announced right now, because as I said, this is still early stage of development. So even things like the story and world are a bit up in the air right now. We haven't settled on that too much. Yeah, as Old Man says, no trade secrets, please. Yeah, so definitely can't say too much, but other than I mean, it'll definitely have some elements of both sci-fi and fantasy in there. It'll have a little piece of both. How exactly those two interact, again, we'll be working on that, but I think between the talks that we've had between the three of us, I think we definitely believe it's possible. I mean, there are definitely games that have done it in the past, like, say, Shadowrun. If anyone is familiar with that, it's essentially like if you took, it's essentially like if you took Cyberpunk but added fantasy races to it. So it has that combination of sci-fi and magic in their fantasy in there, and they do it pretty well. So, not saying our thing is going to look exactly like that. We're still kind of working out those details, but we hope to kind of bring that same level of like natural integration between those two elements. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We've been working on a lot of mechanics, and we've been kind of like testing early, very simplified builds, and I think so far we're kind of got something that could be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
we have a lot of ideas in the bank,
and it's been a blast at creating it. To be completely honest, we're excited.
Maybe for you, I think the project lead's a slave driver personally, but
someone's got to get your asses in gear.
I mean, he ain't wrong. No, you're wrong. You could give us a coffee break every now and then. Jeez.
Sneaky D, welcome in.
Hey, welcome. Sneaky D says sci-fi mixes well with other genres on its own and needs a really solid storyline. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Sci-fi is, at least for me, the thing that makes sci-fi such a, or rather the potential for it to kind of flop for me is that if there's not a solid understanding of science, ironically enough, and you can get that across well to the layman, it's not gonna hit.
Yeah,
It's gonna be like you're sitting in science class or something like that, you know. You have to have those interesting and kind of, how do I put this, the layman, and kind of, I don't want to say lowbrow because it's not really lowbrow, but you got to have those hooks that the regular Joe can kind of get into. And again, that's not saying I don't understand science. I did take physics in college. Got a B, by the way. Okay. So I ain't no dummy. But yeah, there's certain things that just go over my head. And yeah, for science fiction, again, Sneaky put it right. It goes so well with many different genres. It's a solid foundation to build something off of, for sure.
Yeah, the differences between like trying to write sci-fi and fantasy are very interesting because like in fantasy sometimes you can kind of just go with whatever and you can explain it away as, well, magic, because a big part of magic is just the fantastical unknown elements. There's just that kind of belief that everyone has where it's like, oh, well, that's magic. Okay. Unless you beforehand establish a very set rules on that magic and what exactly it can and can't do. For the most part, if you say magic, people will be like, oh, okay. Sci-fi is a little different because, again, it's science fiction. Even if there's that fiction, there's that science bit. So your explanation for like why this weird device actually works and is able to do like, I don't know, shoot laser beams or do whatever, it needs to have at least some actual like logical basis for working, even if it's a stretch. It's got to make just enough sense for people to suspend the rest of their belief.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Here's
you gotta at least sell the concept.
Here's a question on that. Here I am asking the questions. But here's a question on that, and this is a question that we've been really been faced with, and that's, would you prefer science to be, now wait a minute, would you prefer magic to be a science or a force of nature?
I mean, that can be an interesting question, because I've seen stories before where they do treat magic like very much like a science, and they put some explanation into the specifics of how magic even works. The problem is that in some of those stories, there often comes a time where, as like the scale goes up and they start doing more ridiculous things with magic, that they kind of stop explaining how exactly that this is even working.
Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of course now, like because
that's the hard part of trying to write a story where the magic is very well known and studied and treated very much like a science, because you're going to have to make it, even at the higher, grander scales where ridiculous things are happening, you got to have a solid explanation for how this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be difficult. How do you, in science, like in a very scientific way, explain, oh yeah, this super incredible magic spell just reset the entire universe? Don't worry, we can explain that. Like, not sure about that.
Yeah. And it has to be. The suspension of disbelief can only go so far in that regard. There has to be some grounding there.
Yeah, and like and so that's why magic law time is a fantastical element with a lot of unknown to it. Like, and it worked also.
Sorry, Matt. I'm just reading Old Man Garris's comment. Basically, he's saying unless it's a movie with Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, like The Lake House, which I love, by the way. I will admit that. Where they don't explain anything, but wrap it up with something that their audience.
How could you not love that? It's got Keanu Reeves in it, but it's got Sandra Bullock in it. I mean, come on.
Right? Exactly. Sandra Bullock, another fucking gem. And she definitely does not look her age.
No.
Oh yeah, Sneaky D mentions a
Full Metal
favorite kind of
Alchemist.
magic that got inspired by was from Full Metal Alchemist. Yeah, like their concept of alchemy. I mean, they call it a science, but let's be real, it's a magic power. But here's the thing: they don't. They keep. They have. They don't give too many rules to the power of alchemy in that story. There's a few core tenet rules,
Equal,
and they stick to that.
yeah,
But they
equivalent
don't
exchange.
they don't go into the trouble of over explaining things so that when wacky things happen, it's believable because again, even those wacky things will still adhere to those core tenet rules.
Yeah, as long as it adheres to the core tenets, you don't necessarily have to go into too much explanation, thus developing plot holes.
Yeah, exactly. That was a very smart way to do it. And
Oh
like,
yeah, 100%.
yeah, but otherwise, when you're dealing with a magic power, like there's so much strength in keeping that like mysteriousness to it or mysticism to it. Like, let's talk about midichlorians.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
In Star Wars,
Did we
the
just take a
Force-
Star Wars turn here?
Yeah, because this is exactly why sometimes it's better without an explanation. Because the Force, like, I mean, Star Wars, this is exactly what we're talking about. It has a combination of sci-fi and fantastical elements, and that fantastical element is the Force. It was always treated with mysticism, and it was never meant to be fully explained. And then they go say midichlorians. Suddenly, all that mysticism goes away.
Yep.
And it's like, why? Why would you do that? You had so much going for it. Everyone loved the Force for what it was, and you just had to try to dig a deeper level to explain it. Sometimes you don't need to explain things, especially when it comes to mystical powers.
Sometimes the
Very true.
sometimes the right marketing technique is to deliberately not give your audience what they want.
Yeah.
I know that may sound terrible,
Yeah.
but sometimes that is the right marketing technique.
I'm
is
looking
to
at you,
deliberately,
George R. Martin.
deliberately do not give them what they ask for. And that's the piece to it is, in that particular case, that's what they ran into is people are, that question out there about, well, how Force, where's that come from? How's that work? Blah, 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 so they come up with this stupid ass explanation about these things in your blood and yada, 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 to explain that. And, a lot of series have done that as well. They did that in Stargate. They did that as well. They added that element of the particular mineral that was in their blood, and that's why they were able to do run the Stargate or whatever the hell. But that is a case where, that's just one of those questions that don't answer it.
Yeah.
Don't answer it.
Like another example is, I don't think either of you two are familiar with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. A very wacky. It's a very wacky anime to say the least. But at one point they explained the powers as like this weird virus that came from an asteroid that crashed on Earth. I'm like, why? Why would you do that? I was fine accepting this as just a supernatural power that some people just manifested. I was fine with that. Now it's a space virus that it doesn't really make people sick. They just get powers. It's like, just stop. Don't when you have an element of the mystical, don't try to explain it because then it loses that very mystical feeling. And I guarantee you, I don't think that series is ever going to mention that again.
Probably not.
It's like, asteroid, space virus? I don't remember saying that.
but that's...
Man Garrett brings up another really good example of The Expanse, which is a very great book if you've never read it. But even just as good TV show.
I was so disappointed when they canceled that because I was really getting into that. I love the book and the series. I think they were doing a fantastic job with it. I don't understand.
Yeah, they did a really, really good job.
It's like sometimes they get something that's really good and they're like, oh, this is too good. We got to cancel it. Anyway,
Looking at you, Firefly. Still mad about that.
but
Ironically, we mentioned Firefly. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Or it was
yeah, I think
Monday,
that falls under
something.
those trade secrets that Gareth was talking about.
Yeah, possibly. But
Yeah, don't worry about it.
but yeah, like there's a lot of power in leaving just some mystery to things. Like, I know the same reason From Software, like their lore, there's always a lot of vagueness in the way that they present it, because that makes it like infinitely more interesting. It makes people wonder, like, what really happened, and people start speculating. They start coming up with their own theories of what's going on, and that just drives so much more engagement in their community. Because like we've talked about this before, I think, on this very podcast, where like, yeah, there are people who have made YouTube channels, entire careers, about analyzing the lore of From Software's games. You know, the Dark Souls,
Yeah,
Bloodborne,
the lore that doesn't
Elden
exist.
Ring. Yeah, but like and that's because they've leveraged the power of mystery. If they fully explained everything and put it in no uncertain terms,
Yeah,
people
it would.
wouldn't be
Yeah, it would
talking
lose.
about it. They'd be
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Oh,
exactly.
that's cool." Like, "Oh, that's a cool story," and
Yeah,
that's
it would
kind
lose
of
its
where the
mysticism.
discussion would end.
Well, that's
Instead, you have people.
that's the tendency. Even if you think about it, it's a natural human thing, because a lot of people will do exactly that. I mean, I literally have talked to people who will like buying a book, and they'll read the last chapter first. They'll look at the end because they want to know how it ends. That's all they're really worried about. And if they don't like the ending, they don't read the book. And
Do you know people to do
That's
that?
such a
Oh, yeah.
wacky way of reading
Oh,
a
yeah.
book.
Those people are psychopaths. Don't be friends with them.
but that's you know, we want to know all these things so that we feel that we understand whatever that it is. And part of the allure is that the story has more to offer, and that you kill that whole mystery if you just go right out there and give, you know, I'm going to give you a full explanation of all these details about the whole thing. I'm going to tell you the whole thing right now. And what reason do they have to keep coming back?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the
Yeah.
whole journey, the journey, not the destination. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Like there's things that should be explained. Like, again, if you're doing sci-fi, you should probably have at least a
They do have an RPG,
believable
by the way.
enough explanation for how
Didn't know
this
that.
technology
Yeah.
works. But if it's fantasy, I mean, it can be up to you, the writer, like how you want to try to explain some of this. But at the same time, like if there's a mystical element, then keep it feeling mystical. If you explain too much, then it loses that mystical feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The Force stops feeling like this mystical supernatural thing when you just say midichlorians.
That's what other
It
reason?
lost all appeal.
What other reason do people have to get engaged in any type of series? You know what I mean? Whether it's a TV program, a game, a book series, and if there's not something to keep pulling you back because you're interested in finding out what's next, then what's the point? You're not going to, you know, you basically just told your audience or your customer, hey, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to tell you everything right now. Stop coming back here. We don't want to see you anymore. What? That's ridiculous. And that's, in my mind, that's what they did with Star Wars. It's like right away, this next generation of movies, the very first one, we're explaining the Force to you. It's like,
Oh god,
there's
a lot of things you can say about
Right.
the.
I just
most
spent
recent
30
trilogy.
years, okay? 30 years. I just spent 30 years with this headcanon building in my mind about Star Wars based off the original movies. And you just took all that and wadded it up and threw it in the trash.
Yeah,
And told me you're going to do it 5 more times now. It's like,
somehow Palpatine returned.
Fucking Palpatine.
This is an example of some of the things that do deserve some explanation. Maybe someone can enlighten me. Was there any real explanation for that, or did they just leave it at somehow? Like, because that's the wackiest thing. The big bad who was behind everything of the previous 2 trilogies. Like the most like the main villain of the entire Star Wars franchise, who we thought was dead, was just somehow not.
Can you send that to me through Discord, Garrus?
It's God, it's utterly ridiculous. Among the many other problems with the new trilogy, but I feel like that's a completely different.
I don't remember that episode well enough to, they didn't actually give any explanation of how. Right, it's why I'm reading the book. They didn't actually give any explanation of how the Emperor or whatever. Maybe they cloned him. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe this is just me talking uninformed because when it comes to the new trilogy, I'll never watch the one. It didn't really do it for me, and I just lost interest.
The one?
So, the first one of the new trilogy. I only ever watched that one. I haven't watched
for Star Wars.
Yeah, for Star Wars, sorry. Yeah, I didn't watch the 2 after that, because the first one just didn't grab me at all.
You just
the only
didn't
thing
get
I
into...
liked about the new series is Donnie Yen's character. Everything else, yeah, he I don't know if you've seen the new John Wick, but he played Kane in that one. He's a really, really well-known Chinese martial artist and actor. Really cool guy from what I've seen. But yeah, he played a blind, I guess the best way I could put it is a blind monk in a Force, the Rogue One, I think it was the second one. He's the best part of that whole fucking series. The series was trash. I said,
yeah.
I actually do like the Rogue One. I do like that one because it was
I thought that was a good one.
And it was such a step away. You know what I mean? It was like telling the story behind the story, and that I really I got into that.
Yeah.
So much so that I actually went out and bought the Nissan Rogue One. So
he does have one. Greg's a nerd, if you guys can't tell. But yeah,
proud nerd. You've got to mention
that. It's same here. He was great in that movie.
It is. I think. Well, I'm partial to the original series.
Same.
But out of the new ones, absolutely, Rogue One is the best one, in my opinion.
Yeah, Rogue One is the best one out of the follow-on trilogy. Mm-hmm. I grew up watching the prequel trilogy, which I love all of them.
Yep, same here.
And I love the originals, obviously. But the new stuff, I could leave. You could put that shit in the trash. Except for Rogue One. Rogue One was good.
I mean, I felt like it was a little lacking in originality when the first movie of the new trilogy was, we have a bigger Death Star. Like, okay, you're not even doing anything new.
You ain't even try it. Yeah,
you're not even doing anything new here. Like, I could tell, even like in their scene transitions, they were using like the old style. Like they were playing a little too hard on the nostalgia of the original Star Wars. And I think that came at the price of just losing some of their originality. Again, I haven't watched the second and third one of the new trilogy, so maybe they started doing things a little more new, but it's just, you have a new Death Star, you have a new villain that's wearing an outfit very similar to Darth Vader, even if he wasn't horribly scarred underneath and was just an angsty teen. It's just like they were just trying to do the same thing as the original trilogy.
Sneaky D, the only thing I can say to that is there may be somebody who would do that, but they would be missing an awful lot if they did.
Oh, yeah. All right. Brandon Sanderson is an absolutely fantastic author.
There's definitely a reason why Robert Jordan brought him in to finish off the Wheel of Time series.
And if you know who Robert Jordan is, you know. I mean, he picked up where Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and all those high fantasy authors left off and ran with it and scored touchdown after touchdown. I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, and he had Brandon Sanderson in mind to finish off his his masterpiece, and Brandon Sanderson did a fantastic job.
And Ring, you're not missing much then. So pretty good.
Star Wars partial is backers. Yeah.
Yeah, those.
Old Man Garrus, what series are we talking about here? Are we talking about the Wheel of Time series? Because Amazon did that shit and fucked it up royally.
They seem to have a habit.
Yeah,
of doing that
Amazon
lately.
did that. They fucking screwed it up. Same thing with the Rings of Power. I said what I said. God damn it.
I don't think
There's
anyone
no
would
series.
disagree with
Okay,
you
I
on
agree
that.
with you guys. There's no series. I don't know what I'm talking about.
The-
I'm dehydrated.
The Wheel of Time series piece, I'm going to say, in my opinion, the verdict is still out on that. It's not as close to the books as what I would have liked it to be, but it's not completely disappointing yet.
I know, right? Like
Yeah,
that last bit.
that-
Come on now. And here's the thing. I understand taking creative licenses with certain IPs when you're transitioning from a book to live action. But come on.
Well, they're trying to paint. I think they were trying to paint the wolf. Sorry, we're probably giving stuff away here for people who have no clue, but I mean, they're trying to paint the wolf aspect of that character as a bad thing, because the general thinking it's like looking at him and thinking, well, he's kind of like a werewolf. That's not the same thing. Yeah, no. But they're trying to make it so people could understand, I think, so they could relate to the character. And I think they would have been better served to just stick with the way it was presented in the book versus trying to make it into something that it's not. But yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like the most common thing that is perhaps kind of necessary to have to change a little between going from a book to a movie or TV series is that in a book you can often just sort of the specific thoughts of a character are written out on the page,
right? So
you can tell what's going through their head at any time, depending on the style of writing, of course. But you get that view into their mind. In TV form, that may not always be the case unless they do like inner monologue bit, but a lot of times you won't be able to get that window into their mind, so they might have to try to find some other way to communicate what this person is like feeling. Whether they say something out loud or perform some sort of action that wasn't originally there to try to get that same thought across of their state of mind.
Sometimes, and this is something that we've dealt with as well. Sometimes, it's progression of how you do it. I'm going to relate this to games, but I mean, it's progression of how you do it. If you take a story and then do mechanics, you've got a big problem, because the story doesn't necessarily translate well from a book to a game. And it's the same thing when it comes to a movie, or a TV series, is sometimes the book doesn't translate well, but sometimes it's based on technology. There's different aspects there, but sometimes it doesn't translate real well from being a book to a movie. I don't think that's always the case. I think there's a lot of creative license that goes in there, and sometimes they just royally screw things up because they, disagree with the story or whatever it happens to be. Yeah.
And The Witcher is a perfect example of that one. And they had someone who knew. I mean, number one, they had the author. I don't know if I can't say for sure whether he was actually on the production team in any capacity. I don't think he was, but they had a guy, aka Henry Cavill, who spoke with the author. I'm pretty sure at least once, but played the games many times, read the books, so he understood material, and they still fucked it up.
Well, same studio, different game. Cyberpunk 2077. Obviously different.
Oh no, this is the Netflix series, not the Witcher series that came out of CD Projekt Red, which they did a good job. They actually did a good job with that one. That's one of their critically acclaimed games. The Witcher 3.
Yeah, I think I've only ever seen one case where the creative liberties taken with the transition of a product was done for the betterment. And this is a very niche case and a
Which
little
one is it?
ridiculous. So it wasn't like from book to movie or anything like this. This was an anime being
Oh, boy.
localized to English. And honestly, it's a wild ride because the original anime, I forget what it's called in Japan, but its English name is Ghost Stories. And frankly, it didn't do well. Like, no one really cared about it. It was boring. It's just about a bunch of kids, exercising ghosts and stuff. And they got, the localization deal, and because no one
Oh
cared
no,
about it,
no,
they just
no.
told the
We don't talk
localizers.
about that, Garrus. We don't talk about that.
And like Shyamalan's Avatar: The Last
We-
Airbender.
We don't talk about that. Look. All I'm saying is, if M Night Shyamalan, it's on fucking site. It's on fucking site. I see you. We're not gonna go there.
yeah, maybe we'd not go there on on record. But anyway,
Yeah,
this Ghost
it's
Stories,
off the record. That's it's hypothetical.
yeah, with Ghost Stories, they told the localizers just do what you want. And do what they wanted, they did. They changed everything they could. Honestly, if you watched it, you would not think that this was like an official thing. You would think it'd be like one of those YouTube series of like abridged where they just fuck around, because they do so many wacky things. It's honestly hilarious, but at the same time, it's humor that would definitely get you canceled these days, because this came out in like what, 2001 in America, I think. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it in a way that is safe to say over over the internet, but they injected so much incredible humor into it that it changed the characters so much that it became just ridiculous, some of the shit that they would say all of a sudden.
It just entertains me, Garrus, so I Garrus is talking about Sailor Moon live action movie or Ghost
I
in
didn't
the
even know there was a
Shell.
live action Sailor Moon movie.
Okay, I knew
I
about
don't
the Ghost in the Shell. Sailor
Ironically enough, I
Moon,
will
though?
say
Hey, the Ghost in the
Ironically
Shell. I have watched that a couple times. I've
Yeah.
referenced it a couple times. But here's the thing: Scarlett Johansson. I mean,
exactly.
that's it. I mean,
that's number one. Scarlett
it
Johansson.
doesn't have to be a very good movie. That's the
She
thing.
gets a pass. It's Scarlett Johansson. She's cool. She's cool as fuck. But for me, I honestly, Scarlett Johansson aside, I thought it was actually pretty decent. I thought it wasn't great. Obviously, it was decent.
that skin tight.
Skin tight costume.
She already wore a skin tight costume, though, right?
Right? Yeah, she did. I mean, Black Widow. Come on. But yeah, no. Again, Scarlett Johansson aside, everything, I thought that the Ghost in the Shell movie was actually pretty decent. Sailor Moon, I am not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I can already see how bad that's going to go.
Oh,
Whoa!
wait, are you talking about
There's
the
one-
Netflix live action One Piece, old man Garrus? Because I know I saw the trailer for it, and it's like, honestly, I'm always skeptical about live action adaptations of animes, but One Piece is especially a tricky one because
they better
Yeah,
not fuck that up, because they're gonna have a whole shitstorm coming their
Yeah,
way if they
that-
fuck that up.
like that anime is just a little goofy, let's say, because they play with body proportions all the time. You'll get weirdly shaped people. There's so many weird things in that story, and like, how do you put that into live action? I have no idea. Oh, so what did we get? A live action of JJK? Are you referring to Jujutsu Kaisen? Because oh man, that would be sad to see. Because that's like Jujutsu Kaisen is a huge thing right now. That's like,
Oh yeah, it's really big.
It's
really,
like up there-
and yeah, Sneaky D
it's like
says
up there
True
with Demon
Pirates. Yeah.
Slayer.
Yeah, Demon Slayer. I mean, I can only here's the thing: the one live action that I've seen that has been adapted that has actually been pretty good. For those of you who remember Rurouni Kenshin, that live action is actually pretty fucking solid. It's a
didn't know they
pretty
had one.
solid. Yeah, it's a pretty solid live action. I was pleasantly surprised by it. It's pretty fucking good. And for those of you who've not seen the anime, go watch the anime. Yeah, yeah,
Speaking
exactly.
of the anime, they just started remaking that. You can actually watch
Rurouni
it
Kenshin?
now. They're like, as far as I know, they haven't changed anything. They're just remaking it with like, more modern animation.
Okay, because there I've seen a couple different versions, and then there's one that calls him, the Batosai the Manslayer, which is the original one that aired on Toonami. Which
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
only one.
That's
and then
the
you
one.
have the other one where there's like the Batosai the
prequel?
Slasher or some stupid shit.
Oh no, no.
There's one that
that
came out on Hulu or something that they changed some of the fucking words and they call him Batosai the Slasher.
No. They're remaking the one that aired on Toonami, and it's only a couple episodes in right now. I think only like 3 or 4, but for the most part, it just seems kind of like a 1-to-1 remake. I haven't noticed anything.
I'm gonna have to check it out then because I watched the whole thing when it came out. My friend had Samurai X and Samurai Trust and Betrayal, which are the prequel and sequel, where you learn how he gets the scar and everything. Yeah.
I remember watching that. It was very weird to see because it's such a drastic tone shift from the main.
It is, man. Especially
had me question like, am I even watching like Kenshin?
Okay, Kenshin was a. Here's the funny thing: for those of you guys who don't know the anime, who do know the anime, my he didn't even finish his training, and he was stacking bodies like it was he was just walking down the street. It was wild. It like Matt, you hit the nose on the head. It was a tone change. I was like, this man's a whole ass monster.
Yeah, it was weird to see. I mean, it was interesting, but definitely like a very different story from the main the main series.
No, we don't. No, we look.
Whoa! What?
There's another one.
DBZ movie coming out next year, a live action.
Because the first piece of trash was trash. It was garbage. Okay.
Okay, I have to look this up because Dragon Ball Evolution was a.
Matt, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. We're not going to mention that on the stream. We're not going to lead people down that dark corner. No. It was trash. It was absolute garbage.
Is this real?
It was exactly old Bakers. How dare you? It was fucking trash. Although another live action that I did watch a couple episodes of was the Cowboy Bebop one. I also thought that was pretty decent. Not the best, obviously, but I thought it was decent.
We try to keep him in line, Garrus, but sometimes.
Yeah. He's sometimes Matt has a mind of his own. And reestablish the baseline.
The only thing I'll say on Dragon Ball Evolution was that their first mistake was giving Goku an education.
I mean, Goku is a dumbass. Let's put it that way. Hands down, the worst character in the Dragon Ball universe. I said what I said. I will fight anybody on that.
So I repeat that. Who?
Goku, worst character in the whole series. Period. I said what I said.
That was fighting words. He's definitely not my favorite, but I don't think he's the worst.
There's a good question, Sneaky D. What does a director do with one attack that charges for a full 30 minutes?
Oh, gee, take
pad out break. The movie time.
Yeah, take a fucking coffee break is what you do at that point. It's like, all right, guys, keep going. I'll be back in 30 minutes. I mean, in that regard, Sneaky D, they had it right. Because I'm sure those of us who've watched Dragon Ball Z remember those episodes where they just spent 29 minutes powering up and there was like 1 minute of dialogue.
The first Super Saiyan 3 reveal.
Oh my!
Goku sat there screaming for quite a long time. Like, you gotta admire the lungs on that guy.
Real. It's like, dude, eat some fiber. Like, push it out already. Come on. Yep. Grab some popcorn, got a drink, take a fucking nap. By the time you wake up, they'll still be powering up. Holy shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that trailer once we're done here. I can't believe someone is braving this adventure once more after Evolution happened. Like, that is wild.
Oh my, Ring! You're admitting to this.
You watched Dragon Ball and a few seasons of Dragon Ball Z.
Whoa!
Look,
Why are you
look,
ashamed
Dragon
to
Ball.
admit that?
You know what?
What is
Dragon.
that?
That's fine. That's fine, honestly, because Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z,
Goated.
there's a lot of changes between. Yeah, they're both great, but there's a lot of changes because obviously, Dragon Ball had more of the emphasis on the martial arts aspect, and then you get to Dragon Ball Z where you don't really have people doing martial arts so much as
Yes,
just flying through the air, pure strength, punches and kicks, and giant.
Original
energy
Mortal
blasts.
Kombat was dope.
Oh,
movie?
the
You were
like,
never-
classic
Gemma.
Mortal Kombat movie.
Gemma, you were never
I
too old for
remember that
Dragon
one.
Ball Z. No one is ever too old for Dragon Ball Z, okay? Or Dragon Ball. That whole universe is great. Even with the episode long power ups, still fucking great.
Like, they somehow still managed to make it entertaining, as ridiculous as it is. Oh, you stopped watching
GT ain't
GT?
canon. GT ain't canon.
Yeah, since Super came out, that was just like them saying, "Oh yeah, GT never happened.
Nope, never happened.
This is the real
No, I did kind of like.
continuation of the timeline." Like the
You
only
see
thing I like.
Android 18 who they cast for that. It'll be
Ooh,
Scarlett Johansson.
okay, yeah. We'll need to see who's Android 18 is. Yeah, like,
Scarlett
GT,
Johansson, watch.
yeah, like, honestly, my favorite piece of GT was just Super Saiyan 4. All things aside, Super Saiyan 4 just looked absolutely sick.
It did.
It looked like that's way cooler than the Super Saiyan Blue we got now. Let's be real.
I mean, look. Super Saiyan Blue led to Super Ego Vegeta.
Okay, yeah, like they
Oh,
do
I saw
eventually
it.
have.
That's all I say.
They do eventually have Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego, which
Yeah.
you know what?
Ultra Ego, yeah.
I'm at least happy that Goku and Vegeta have different forms at that point because they're
Mhm.
doing something different from each other, which is honestly one of my biggest gripes about Dragon Ball Z and Super is that almost everyone kind of just fights the same.
Yeah. And I'm glad Vegeta finally getting his due because that was long overdue.
Yeah, Vegeta needs some love.
Yeah. He I mean, he's my favorite character. I think he's a lot of people's favorite character.
I'm a Piccolo fan, to be honest.
Yo, Piccolo's a menace.
What do you mean he's a menace?
Piccolo's a whole ass fucking menace.
He's the father Gohan never had.
You're not wrong though.
You
How
see
you
it,
not
like,
wrong?
if you've watched the recent superhero movie, they play into that so much with Piccolo's role in Gohan's family. He, like, the teacher at his Gohan daughter, like his Pan, the teacher at her school knows Piccolo because he comes up and picks her up all the time. He's like the real father and grandfather there. That movie was fun.
It was.
Yeah,
Also, one of the rare instances that 3D animation for an anime was, I felt like, really well done. It didn't look janky at all. They did it well.
yeah, I'm completely quiet because I have nothing to add to this conversation.
Yeah, I don't think you're much of an anime guy. I think we've kind of gone outside of your area.
The best I could come up with listening to this whole thing is, hey, how about the live action Power Rangers movie?
Dude, Power Rangers, they're still going.
They are still going,
I mean,
unfortunately.
Power Rangers is also fantastic. I mean, rip fuck, Jason, I can't remember his whole name, but Jason Frank. Rip him, man. He passed away earlier this year. He was the Green Ranger for those of you who don't know, and yeah, whoa. Don't you say that Power Ranger slander in here.
I'm on your side, Ring.
Whoa, whoa, who, whoa.
Okay.
No. We're not
I
going to have that here.
don't think we want you on the stream anymore.
Yeah, we're going to have to replace you.
We're taking over.
Like, what kind of this
That's it.
Power
You're out,
Rangers
right?
Yeah, no. Okay.
Jeez, these guys are rough. So it's like, wow. No dissenting. Okay.
No. There are certain things that everybody gets in line for.
Look, things that are never gonna die. Power Rangers, Pokemon, and somewhere in the background, Digimon just keeps coming back just when you think it's dead.
Okay, this is gonna be the one area where I'm probably gonna get stoned to death. I like Digimon better than Pokemon.
You know what? They had a dope intro. I'll give them that.
They did. They really did. Oh man, I love the Digimon intro. It was so good. Although, come on now. We all stood up and sang the intro to Pokemon every time it came on. I know I did.
True. Another iconic intro.
Thank you, Moon Girl.
Yep. Thank you very much for the sub, Moon Girl. Brodicious. Hey, thanks for joining us, man. I didn't even see you come in there.
I think he's probably just been lurking for most of the time.
I was going to say, he's sneaky, that one. Brodicious. Sneaks right up in there. How you doing, buddy?
Lurkers. Then that's fine.
Yeah, we're just chit chatting at this point. So we're
just shooting the shit at this point.
Yeah.
And to kind of cap off the episode, like an hour ago. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the episode, learned a couple good things about kind of the things that go into marketing, and really getting your name out there in terms of being a studio and putting out a piece of content, whether it be a game, a movie, what have you. I mean, the principles are cross pollinate. But I mean, there's a lot that just goes into the game development pipeline from all corners of the creative sphere. But yeah. Now we know why nobody cares about the game. Rob acknowledges the world, the Wheel of Time series. No, I don't. I thought it was okay. I watched I think 1 episode or 2 episodes of it. I mean, I'm probably gonna watch the rest just to finish it out. Maybe.
I'm just curious to see, because that the Wheel of Time has been. I mean, that was actually part of my childhood. That series. I mean, it's what 50, so many books, and I'm just curious to see what exactly they do with that. How badly they mess it up.
Fuck it up. Yeah.
But
yeah, I remember reading it when I was a kid too. And granted, obviously he was way before my time, but yeah, I remember reading the Wheel of Time series. I think I was in junior high school. I was a super nerd when I growing up. So I was the kid that read like the Lord of the Rings in class, and then when I got introduced to Robert Jordan, read all his stuff. Come to find out, there's a fun story about that Robert Jordan, but I will get to in a minute. Yeah, Rand did. Yeah.
I gotta say, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I am 25 for the 23rd time.
Yeah, I mean, look at you.
Yeah. Just show pictures of your long hair. Greg did have long hair at one point, but the fun story.
Are you saying I'm so old it all sucked back in? I mean,
it went into the head, started coming out other places.
Unfortunately, that could be true.
That's stress. But the fun story of Robert Jordan. So I, for those of you who know, I did go to the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina, of which Robert Jordan is an alumnus. It was my freshman year, or knob year, as it's called, because we're all shaved bald. Anyway, I was sitting in the library doing some work, and out of the corner of my eye, there was like a display case of Robert Jordan's work. And the only reason why I recognized that was because, again, I had read all the books up until that point. I think it was like book 10 or something like that, book 10 or 11 by then. And I recognized the cover of the first book, The Eye of the World. And, I finished my work, got up, walked over, And lo and behold, yeah, there's Robert Jordan right there. Native of Charleston, South Carolina, alumnus of the Citadel. He was in the, I believe, 7th Cavalry in Vietnam. The whole spiel. He had a physics degree. He had I think he went back to graduate college to get a master's in creative writing. And I was like, holy shit! One of my favorite all time favorite authors went to same school. Wear the same ring. Who knew? But yeah, it's disappointing that when they announced the Wheel of Time series, I was extremely skeptical, and then when I saw the first episode, a little piece of me died inside.
Everyone here is 25. Yep.
Yeah, everybody's here. 25.
Yeah,
What
it's
you
just
talking
crazy. We're also young and still in good health. All of us here.
Oh, tell that to my niece.
I agree. I agree, Gemma.
Yeah.
You all get off my lawn.
Garrus is like, you don't know old. Garrus is a young man, by the way. He's very young, man. He just has an old soul.
All right. So I will leave it up to you guys. I think, are we about ready to wrap things up, or?
I think so.
I mean, I think we could
so.
keep just shooting the breeze here for quite a long time, but
for quite a while, yeah.
Yeah.
But in terms of our episode, yeah, I think we're wrapping that up. And honestly, guys, I mean, this is what we're here for you guys to talk with, to communicate with, to shoot the shit, but also to kind of talk about the things that we bring up in the episodes. So I mean, and here's the thing: if you guys have something that y'all would like to see, I believe Greg has a suggestion box somewhere on the page. Drop a suggestion. If there's something that you guys want us to dissect, to discuss, let us know. We come here for you guys to interact with you and to spend some time with y'all. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you guys want to see or hear something, drop a suggestion. But with that, that's the end of the episode. But before we wrap up, there's obviously a couple things. So this is the update log. This was episode 13. No one cares about your game. They secretly do, but you have to make them. Next week, Wednesday at 2000 EST, same time, same place, we will actually be going over. Hold on, let me pull up my notes because I can't remember worth shit. Kind of what to do when you've hit a wall, or where you're uncertain, and this is pertaining to the creative process, because as hopefully we've illustrated over the last 13 episodes, creating a game, any game, whether it's TTRPG or a video game, is a lengthy and very complicated process, and sometimes, probably oftentimes, you're gonna hit some kind of wall, and knowing how to pivot, knowing how to adjust, and to carry on past those points are we going to get you to the completed product so people can enjoy the work that you've done, and kind of enjoy it with y'all. So that's what we will be going over next Wednesday. And we do have another stream on Fridays at 8 o'clock as well, or 2000 EST. I will let Greg talk about that.
Really, really quickly, next Wednesday is still a little bit up in the air. As I will be out of town, and I'm not sure whether the internet access from the hotel is going to be. So
that is correct.
We might do something a little different next week. We'll definitely let you guys know through the Discord. So if you haven't joined the Discord, please do join the Discord.
Yeah, I believe there are links there in the chat somewhere. Yep.
Yeah.
We have 2 other streams we're doing this week. The first one is tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we're doing what we call a special edition for our BOR campaign. It is a one-shot. And it is the origin story for Scotty. So Scotty is a character in our BOR campaign. You want to tell them a little bit about Scotty, Matt, since you play that character?
Yeah. So, for those not familiar with our BOR campaigns, Cyberpunk campaign, I play a guy named Scotty Sims. He is the talker of the group, usually trying to get out of trouble in any way he can. His nickname is the Rat, and he kind of lives true to that. Plenty of using tricks and stuff, and this origin story is kind of gonna explain like some of his life before ending up in the bureau, like, and how he kind of came to be who he is, and some of the values he might hold.
Yeah, we are really looking forward to telling this story tomorrow night, and definitely be there and check it out, because I think you'll find out some things that about Scotty that will really help you to understand the character better, I think. And then the main story will be. I got a comment on the will the really real Scotty stand up that Slim Shady reference there, Garrus.
And yes, Garrus, 1900 CST.
Yeah, so that'll be 1900 CST tomorrow, and then at 7 p.m. CST. On Friday is the main campaign for our BOR series. It is a cyberpunk-based series, and that's where you'll get a chance to meet most of the characters. There's been we've had some really interesting things go on, and I think Friday is really geared up to be a. You're just gonna have to check it out, because I mean, there's a lot of really good story that's going to go into Friday, and I'm really, really, really excited to see, or maybe even worried to see, what Ring's reaction to what she finds is going to be. So, don't know how that's going to happen or how that's going to work out. But yeah, so tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, Friday night, 7 o'clock, and that should roll up our week. Next week, I will be in Indianapolis, Indiana for Gen Con, hanging out with the R. Talsorian folks, so the gaming company that created Cyberpunk, Mike and Lisa Pondsmith. Be hanging out with those folks and learning a little bit about them, and just chatting, see what happens. That'll be my week next week. Not sure whether I will be able to be a part of streams, but we do have a couple alternate ideas that we've been talking about. So even if we do not stream anything next week, we will be doing some content through our Discord channel. So please do join us there. We talked about possibly doing like a movie night and watching some of the movies that we've used as reference material. I think it is also possible that we may do a version of the update log through Discord. Maybe. I don't know if Rob is interested in doing that.
Yeah. I thank you for reminding me of that that change in our regularly scheduled program. Yeah, we will have to come up with something a bit different.
Yeah, we are trying to get more active in the Discord so that we're more focused on the community and not just the streams. And the streams are really to bring to a broader audience, but the people in the Discord community are our primary focus. So
yes, please join the Discord. Definitely join the Discord. That way, first of all, you'll keep up to date on things, and secondly, we get to have conversations like this whenever we want.
All right, guys, I think that wraps us up for tonight, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us again thanks for the for staying with us for an extra hour, and thanks for the chats, guys. It's been a blast. We love hearing from you like this. You guys have a good evening, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, everybody. Bye bye.
Adios.
Yep.